Welcome to another edition of Weekly Digest, a government information agency program that keeps you informed on what the administration has been doing to create a better environment for citizens. I'm your host, Ursula Ramdayal. Thank you for joining us. In this week's presentation for the period May 18 to 24, rehabilitation and maintenance continue on hinterland roads. Police forces' response capability boosted, 19 more vehicles added, and a committee set up to monitor flooding in the Rupununi. Government has been making considerable investments into the rehabilitation and maintenance of roads throughout the country, including hinterland roads, which exist in difficult terrain and accommodate traffic of heavy-duty vehicles.
Minister of Public Works Robertson Ben inspected the work being done on 2 roads in Region 1 during a recent visit. The first was the Wanaina-Wauna stretch of road, where work was interrupted several weeks ago by residents. Their view is that the contractor was not using the right type of materials for the work.
You have a legal right to protest. You have a right to go here. You could come even in front of me, ministry, and protest and behave bad. But do not prevent the work that is ongoing. Do not avoid a rational and reasonable discussion about whatever problem is there. Contact the permanent secretary, the ministry, or the chief works officer.
Approximately $15 million is being spent to fix portions of the stretch of road that have deteriorated. It was determined by the minister and the team of engineers that more pebbly type of gravel, laterite, should be used. In Barabina, residents had rejected the material, wood, that was being used by the contractor for the revetment and pile off.
The issue with Barabina, right? Let me explain from the beginning what happened. The first thing, when we went out for bid for Barabina, we was normally advertised 2 weeks in the newspaper. But we realized that it didn't have contractors, a lot of contractors coming in this area. So we went to public advertising for 3 weeks. Run the advertisement more than the normal time. But only one person bid for the project. That was Joshi. So we didn't have no alternative but to award Joshi the contract. Nevertheless, the contract was signed and everything. Now, the material that he put on the road, it was rejected. We officially rejected the material itself. We got a list of wood from the vice chairman office. Now we presented him and said, listen, you could get these alternative wood to use on the road, which he agreed to. Currently, he is in the process of procuring the wood to do the revetment, and he asked us for 2 months extension, which we granted. So the works is expected to complete it by the end of July. If not, we would use clauses in the contract to charge him liquidated damage.
Both projects will be closely monitored to ensure the communities get relief.
All-terrain vehicles, ATVs, cars, 4x4s, minibuses and trucks are among 19 vehicles valued $61 million that have been added to the Guyana Police Force fleet to augment crime fighting, including in the hinterland locations.
The keys to the vehicles were presented to Acting Police Commissioner Leroy Bromell at the Tactical Services Unit, Eve Leary, by Home Affairs Minister Clement Rohi. The vehicles were funded through the 2012 national budget.
We can never stop as a government providing these assets to the Guyana Police Force. The force is growing, its demands are increasing, its responsibilities are widening, and therefore, the people are looking to a more effective force that provide them with service and protection.
The handing over of the vehicles is considered an important and historical event because the law enforcement agency in Guyana must be equipped at all times with the assets to enable them to execute their functions.
I think the greatest expectation of the taxpayers, of particularly the law-abiding citizens, is to ensure that these vehicles, among others, 396 in total, which is in the stock of the Guyana Police Force, are used for service and protection. This is a regular feature, us having been given tools so that we can continue with our work. Honorable Minister, I want to thank the government through you and your hard-working ministry for your constant donations to us and in your efforts to modernize this force.
The government will continuously be providing assets to the Guyana Police Force because the force demands and responsibilities are increasing and persons are looking for a more effective course that will provide them with service and protection.
Over 1,500 laptops were given out as the One Laptop per Family Secretariat recently commenced the rolling out of a massive distribution exercise targeting Region 4.
Laptops were distributed on the East Coast at Mahaica, Helena, Enmore and Buxton, on the East Bank at Farm, Soesdijk and Kurukururu, and in Georgetown in Sophia, North Rheinveld and All Boys Town. PPP Member of Parliament Manzoor Nadir was in attendance at the exercise in All Boys Town and explained that the laptop distribution is for the social, economic and personal development of the recipients.
Today, this piece of equipment that we have ought to bring for all of us, those of us who are old like I am, maybe we have gone over the hill, but our children and grandchildren can have an opportunity. This is not about $60,000 which the government is giving you. This is about opportunities.
I'm really happy to know that I can use the computer to go to research in the internet and other places, other things to do. Like even getting in contact with people, you can use the laptop to speak to people and get in contact with them.
I feel nice about getting a laptop. They really will benefit the son them who go to school. They just go boost them when we in developing their education.
I feel great because actually I can't afford to buy a laptop right now, so getting the opportunity to have it right now, it's a great opportunity.
This current Region 4 distribution exercise will see over the next few weeks a total of 6,000 laptops being placed in the hands of recipients from the East Coast, East Bank and Georgetown. Under government's OLPF program, a total of 28,000 laptops are already in the hands of families in numerous communities countrywide.
With effect from May 27 for a period of 1 month, Caribbean Airlines will fly an additional flight to Guyana that is expected to bring 900 more seats.
As the ministry continues to encourage more airlines to fly the Guyana route from June 27 to the end of September, there will be daily flights in addition to what exists.
The government has just decided to contract routes to do a lot of the marketing work for us, to do a lot of the analysis to us and a lot of the promotional work in driving traffic to Guyana, driving airlines to Guyana. You would have read in the newspaper that we are talking to a few carriers. We have made initial contact. There's a lot of interest in the market from charters and wet leases. We're trying to get more established carriers.
The Ministry of Tourism has been marketing Guyana as a viable tourist destination through its arm, the Guyana Tourism Authority, and it is expected that tourist arrivals will increase this year.
An important step we have taken is contracting the services of Roots. Roots is one of the largest organizers of airports and airlines conferences. In excess of 500 airport and airlines will meet. They do it by continent. So there's one in every continent. There's Roots Americas, which the Latin and Caribbean America would attend. And then there's also Roots World. And by having them on board, and with their experience, what's going to happen is that we will benefit, one, from a market study. To basically have an understanding of the market. And then with that sort of data, we'll be better able to, or better positioned to negotiate with the airlines, several of whom we have already have initial discussions, and we're providing data and doing more market analysis.
There will also be 2 flights to Toronto, and steps are also being taken towards contracting routes in every continent. Other airlines that government is in discussion with include JetBlue and Fly Jamaica.
More of the Weekly Digest after these messages.
Guyana's economy grew by 4.8% in 2012, the 7th consecutive year of positive growth. This expansion was due to the macroeconomic policies put in place by government to protect the local economy and ensure a better life for all Guyanese. Economic growth is projected at 5.3% for 2013.
The 2013 national budget grants exemptions from personal income tax to first-time homeowners whose taxable income goes towards paying interest on mortgage of up to $30 million from a commercial bank or building society. The 2013 national budget grants exemptions from personal income tax to first-time homeowners whose taxable income goes towards paying interest on mortgage of up to $30 million from a commercial bank or building society.
Thanks for staying with us on the Weekly Digest. The sum of $723 million is to be spent in 2013 to satisfy several components of the Ministry of Local Government and Regional Development's Solid Waste Management Program for Region 4.
$42 million of this total will be spent on public relations enterprise surrounding the use of the Higgs Bush Sanitary Landfill site.
To inform residents, remind them that the time is drawing very near when that solid waste tax will be instituted, and so every household will be expected within these 15 NDCs and the municipality to meet that, I think it's $1,000 or $1,200 per month.
Another $300 million is to be used to complete work at the landfill site, whilst $20 million is to be used to procure and distribute 841 solid waste receptacles.
Some of these receptacles are intended to be very large receptacles that would be stationary and can only be moved with the help of equipment. And so we will be procuring to the tune of $50 million, 2 additional trucks, properly designed, compact trucks you call them, properly designed to remove these huge receptacles and to take them away to the landfill.
Other aspects of the works that will be conducted include the closing of the temporary dump site on the East Coast and East Bank, and the setting up of a temporary holding area in the city that will provide the opportunity for those persons who miss the normal scheduled garbage collection to dispose of their waste. The cost of this solid waste management project is funded under a grant from the International Development Bank to the tune of US $18 million, of which already $10 million has been expended.
Government's investment in providing access to health care is evident in the increase in construction, rehabilitation and/or extension of healthcare facilities across the country, even in the most remote areas of the hinterland.
Minister in the Ministry of Local Government and Development, Norman Whitaker, on a recent visit to Region 1, commissioned a new health hut for the community of Barimo, Caraibo. This investment of $6.7 million by government is to ensure the delivery of health care to the 420 residents of the community in the Barimo-Waini region. The new structure, which boasts, among others, a waiting area, malaria room, an examination room and washroom, replaces a smaller building that was constructed in 1998. This is the second Amerindian community to benefit from commissioning of a health hut recently, as government in 2013 continues on its agenda of building on the gains made in the health sector under its administration in the past 21 years. The other community is Princeville in Region 8. Government is determined to fulfill its quest on promoting healthcare countrywide for the benefit of all its citizens.
The Region 9 Regional Democratic Council is currently developing a regional disaster committee that will be tasked with closely monitoring the flooding in the Rupununi district during rainy periods.
Flooding has been a major issue in the Rupununi area, and over the years, government has been rendering assistance to those affected. During the current rainy season, the Regional Democratic Council is closely monitoring the situation and is in the process of developing a long-term disaster preparedness plan.
At the regional level, we are preparing, we are formulating a disaster preparedness plan. Now, this is a regional disaster preparedness plan where we will be depending on the Tushos in particular to communicate to us through the DDOs to the regional or the central command, we call it, in Latin, of what is happening day to day in terms of monitoring the impact of the rains.
Officials of the Ministry of Amerindian Affairs recently visited Aishalton, Karnarnau, Mawarnau, and Awarnau in the Deep South Rupununi, Region 9, where residents complained of damage to the roads and bridges as a result of the flood. While there have been efforts to rehabilitate and build roads and bridges, the residents said that contractors should consult with the community before constructing them in order to seek advice as to what is best.
We are the engineers here. We know the water stage. You just came, you don't know where the water is. You know, you just came and you come yesterday. Then you will see. And we know every year we are here. And any contractor from Charleston or from Letcher will come and try and build something, and without contacting us, then you know what happens is what.
Additionally, the Civil Defense Commission has been hosting public forums and conducting training in order to ensure maximum response and efficiency in the event of a disaster.
Education is the most important, if not the only tool that will take a country's development to the next level, as can be seen in Region 1. The government of Guyana recognizes this and has been making large investments to make education accessible to all of the nation's children, regardless of where they live.
In Barima-Waini Region 1, these investments resulted in significant increase in the student population, so much so that new schools are being built and existing ones are being extended.
In our education sector, in almost all of our schools across the region, we have persons from the communities managing those institutions, headmasters, acting masters. We have now more trained teachers in the region than any time before. I think like 5 years ago, we had maybe like 30% trained teachers in Region 1. Today we have over 51% trained teachers in the region. So that in itself shows that the education sector is, has been progressing at a rate that says that development is actually taking place.
During a recent visit to the region, Minister within the Ministry of Finance, Juan Hedgel, handed over the keys to a new building which will now house the St. John's Primary School in Three Brothers, Region 1.
Whenever the government of Guyana makes investments to provide facilities to communities, it's testimony of our belief that should we continue to provide the infrastructure, communities would care it, communities would use it, and communities would benefit from it. It is with people in mind.
This year, a new school will be built in the Matakai sub-district, as well as a new teachers' quarters in Baramita, also in Region 1. As a matter of policy, the government has placed education high on its agenda. This year, the sector received $28.7 billion.
Stay tuned for a cabinet roundup and perspectives after the break.
With effect from the year of income 2013, personal income tax will be changed at a rate of 30% instead of 33 1/3%. As a result, more than 184,000 taxpayers will benefit from higher take-home pay, and an additional $1.8 billion of disposable income will be placed annually in the hands of the tax-paying public.
During Cabinet meeting this week at the Office of the President, His Excellency President Donald Ramotar and ministers of the government discussed several issues of national concern. The media was subsequently briefed on Cabinet's deliberations.
At its Tuesday, March 21st statutory meeting, Cabinet gave its no objection to contracts for the Education Ministry, the Guyana Elections Commission, the Housing and Water Ministry, along with the Natural Resources and Environment Ministry. The announcement of the Senior Counsel and former Attorney General Charles Ramson to the post of Commissioner of Information was also made by the Cabinet Secretary.
The appointment under the Access to Information Act 2011 confers on Mr. Ramson powers to enforce the provisions of that same act, the Access to Information 2011. Specifically, the Commissioner has powers to provide access to information, if so required, to publish information and information dealing with specific information and categories of information that is in the possession and control of public authorities.
A key seminar examining trade investments and opportunities will be held in Guyana on June 27th.
Donors would be hosting a seminar labeled Maximizing Investments and Opportunities in Guyana. And this seminar will take place on June 27, 2013. Among CARICOM countries, Guyana continues to attract considerable foreign direct investment. In 2012, it was practically 300 million Guyana dollars. And this is perhaps a contribution, and it is reflected in Guyana's positive annual GDP, its economic growth, extending for its 7th consecutive year.
The Cabinet Secretary also criticized the parliamentary opposition parties for withdrawing from the Select Committee talks, which is currently addressing issues surrounding the Anti-Money Laundering and the Counter-Terrorism Bill, a move which they have now reversed.
And now for perspectives with Mr. Prem Mizir.
Independence is one of the most significant days in this country's history, a moment in our history that should never be erased. And indeed, this year, Guyana celebrates its 47th independence anniversary. To even understand this day's significance, we have to engage ourselves into the past, to feel the experiences of previous generations, to understand the reasons for the independence struggle, and to sustain the gains accrued since 1992. The idea of independence emerged in 1945 in a Dr. Cheddi Jagan's pamphlet titled Cooperative Way, where he advocated for the working class to control the government and move toward complete independence. The PPP, founded in 1950, began agitation for independence. The agitation prompted the establishment of the Waddington Commission to address the campaigning in British Guyana, as it was called then. The PPP demanded universal adult suffrage, a fully elected legislature, a cabinet of elected ministers, etc., as its conditions for independence. The first adult suffrage election was held in Guyana in 1953 during the Cold War. At the independence talks in London in 1960, while the People's Progressive Party advocated for immediate independence, the People's National Congress at that time showed little support for severing the bonds with Great Britain. They wanted no independence at that time. In 1962, to further delay independence, the People's National Congress conditioned the bestowal of independence with a change in the electoral system. That is, they wanted to change the electoral system before they would support any independence. Despite these initial difficulties, Great Britain granted independence to Guyana on May 26, 1966. The PPPC's democratic thrust and gains over the preceding decade has given significance to the word independence, and these gains must be consolidated and sustained to benefit all Guyanese. A lot has happened since 1992 to sustain the PPPC's gains. The first priority then was to respond to a massive debt crisis, and which took Guyana about 10 years to become financially viable. And as a response to the debt crisis, the government of Guyana successfully mobilized considerable debt relief. Some examples I will now elaborate on. At the Cochabamba Summit in 2006, President Bharat Jagdeo secured the South American Community of Nations endorsement of a resolution asking for 100% debt relief of Guyana's stock of debt, with December 2004 as the cutoff point, effective from January 2007. And then the IDB approved this resolution, making $467 million available as debt write-off for Guyana. In 2003, Guyana received $585 million under the Enhanced HIPC initiative. These are only just a few examples, or they are just a few examples of the debt relief. There were lots of others. In education, there was 47.52% CXC passes in 1992. That's almost half of the children presented for CXC passed the CXC. Today, these passes have been approximating 70% over the last few years. General secondary enrollment, too, was 35% in 1992. Today, it stands at around 72%. The defining issue of our time is to remove the vulnerability and poverty among the Guyanese people. Any government working in the interest of its people must focus and give priority to the vulnerable and the poor. That is the expectation that people have of democratic and people-oriented governments. The 2013 PPPC budget can be one of the mechanisms to further this expectation, to empower the vulnerable and the poor. For the 7th consecutive year, Guyana's economy has had increased growth rate. The projected real growth rate for this year is 5.30%, an increase from last year. And no development will take place without national unity. The government's record demonstrates its belief that an evolving national unity in a multi-ethnic society as Guyana is born out of an ethnic diversity, guided by dialogue and constructive engagement in the body politic. On this most important day in Guyana's history, this Independence Day, we need to understand that good governance through inclusivity is a prerequisite for development and requires the contribution of all Guyanese. Happy Independence Day.
And with those features, we have come to the end of this edition of Weekly Digest. But before we go, here's a recap of the highlights. The rehabilitation and maintenance continue on hinterland roads. Police forces response capability boosted, 19 more vehicles added. And a committee has been set up to monitor the flooding in the Rupununi region. Please note that the Weekly Digest and other government information programs can be found on our website www.gina.gov.gy, or you can send us your comments and suggestions at gina@gina.gov.gy. Join us again next week as we highlight more of government's programs and policies which continue to enhance the lives of Guyanese. I'm Ursula Ramdial. Stay tuned for your regular programming. Goodbye.